Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at IHateCritics.net, IHateCritics.com, Everyone's a Critic Podcast.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. Our best way to support the podcast is Patreon at patreon.com/CriticsPod. You can also click on our TeePublic link on the IHateCritics.net page if you want to help support the podcast with merch. You can visit us at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Alexa, Stitcher, all your podcatchers. Subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. We also have a YouTube channel. Subscribe there and hit the little bell in the upper right-hand corner to get notifications when a new episode drops. We'll start this week with the death of John Saxon.
Yes, John Saxon, 83 years old, best remembered for, I would say, Nightmare on Elm Street. Others might say Enter the Dragon. However you want to look at it, he was a well-known character actor who acted for many years, and just a very strong presence. A memorable face, memorable manner to him. He was really a guy who really stood out especially in the Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, if you'd asked me who he was, I wouldn't have known. But when they started seeing pictures online, I mean, you recognize him from everything, but especially those two movies. It's always sad. Do you know what, just old age, or he didn't have corona, did he?
I have no idea. I didn't bother to look at why.
Yeah.
It's too sad.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to talk about before we get started in the podcast?
I mean, I don't know much about Regis Philbin other than he hosted a popular talk show and he was on a couple of WrestleManias. That's pretty much what I know of Regis Philbin. He passed away this week. He was 88, I believe.
I believe he went to Notre Dame. That's all I really know about him.
He was a beloved figure in entertainment. Everybody had just wonderful things to say about him.
Yeah, I'm sure he's popped up in a bunch of movies as himself. I just, off the top of my head, can't name any.
Yeah, I imagine.
And in terms of like movie news, I don't really know what's going on. I mean, we're still just kind of waiting. I don't know what's
Everything's been moved indefinitely. Yeah. Tenet, Mulan, just moved indefinitely. It's probably, we're probably not going to see a movie this year.
Yeah, I don't think we are, at least in the theaters. And I'm wondering what next year's going to be like. If it's just going to be like every movie in the same week, all of a sudden there's no, I don't know. They're not making movies right now, though, are they? Maybe here and there, but not.
Here and there, yeah. There's a couple of productions that have gone back in. Like I think Mission Impossible restarted, but they're in Europe. That makes it a little bit easier because they've got smart leaders who controlled this thing.
I think Jurassic Park's back on doing their thing, maybe. Or at least I heard it was. I don't know for sure. I don't know. We'll see how this all plays out. But there could be a lot of movies coming out at the same time next year. I don't know. We'll see. I just don't know.
Got to get a cure or a treatment or something first.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into this week's movies, and let's start with The Rental.
The Rental is from director Dave Franco, who's best known as James's little brother and an actor for the most part. But here he's directing a movie about a pair of couples who rent a Airbnb, and the really lovely place right on the ocean. They get a great deal on it for whatever reason. We'll find out why. And a lot of it is kind of a mumblecore, relationship drama for the first 2/3 of the movie, and then suddenly, oh, by the way, here's Jason Voorhees at the last minute, which is I guess kind of a clever approach. These aren't really particularly likable characters. You don't really fall for any of these characters in terms of people, but I did like the dynamic between them all. They're all very attractive people. And you're interested throughout. The direction is really solid. He does a great job of building some tension, especially I thought the use of the score in this movie was really fantastic. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed these characters a lot. didn't necessarily like them because they're not really likable. They're kind of a couple of them are kind of have a couple of charming moments, but they're doing some pretty terrible things to each other, and that's really what's going on for the first two acts of the movie. Is that we're finding out about the various dynamics between them. And granted, like two of them are perceived as kind of innocent, but also the other two are much more deceitful, I guess. But everybody seems to have their issues, and I appreciated that. I thought this for a guy directing his first movie, this is pretty solid. He's got a really good eye, and he's very deft with his plotting. His decisions with the camera are really smart for a guy who's never directed a feature before. I was impressed with that. I like this movie.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was kind of like you said, Jason Voorhees pops up at the end. It's kind of like he took those movies and goes, what doesn't work about them? What don't you believe? And then he worked backwards from there. And, you mentioned the characters not being likable, but that's what makes it work because of the dynamic between the four of them. It allows for everything to unravel the way it does in a more realistic way, especially with, you throw in the person running the Airbnb and his issues and what they think about him. It just makes it much more smarter horror movie. Not smart in the way that like Get Out is, but like smart in just a very conventional, good little horror movie. He was able to kind of tie up any loose ends. So there's really not a whole lot of times where you're watching that going, oh, that's stupid. I wouldn't have done that. What are you doing? There's not a whole lot of that. If anything, the only time I said, what are you doing, is when the bad guy, the Jason Voorhees character, it's not really Jason, we're just calling him that.
Right.
For those of you who haven't seen this. But when that character, when he kills somebody, there's one point I'm like, why would you do that? If you leave him alive, then you can frame this whole thing on him and you can keep doing what you're doing elsewhere. But I don't know. It was a nice, tight little movie. That's really all I can say about it. It's not a whole lot. It's not amazing, but it's nice and tight.
Yeah, Toby Huss is the guy who plays the caretaker. He's a really terrific character actor. Very odd, got an odd energy to him, and the racial dynamic that they play up with him, potentially being like at least a very minor racist at the very least, was kind of interesting, and it built a lot of tension to where. Any time that he was brought into the movie, you kind of thought maybe he was going to be the big bad, and he's not. And they really play that dynamic with him incredibly well as not your typical red herring, but certainly a red herring type, which I appreciated. That's one of the smarter elements of the movie.
But I think in a theater, this would have really spoke to those casual horror movie fans that like to go see the Jason movies that aren't Cousin Jeff, but they don't go to movies a lot, but when they do, they like the crappy horror movies. I think this would really paid off for those type of moviegoers. For us, it was still good. I mean, I would have kind of enjoyed it with an audience as well. But it's I don't know. It's pretty impressive for a first-time director. Obviously, I mentioned Get Out earlier. Way more impressive for a first-time director. But it is still good. I mean, the acting's good. Just neat. All I can say is it's neat and smart. There's no point where it falls apart, and that's pretty impressive for a horror movie like this.
Yeah, I mean, even have a character who actually tries to leave, which I thought that was great. For once, actually somebody actually gets in the car and they actually come up with a logical reason why they don't get to leave, and it's really good. I appreciated that. Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff about this. I love that, especially the third act score is one of the more intense that I've heard in a while. I was really squirming because of that music in the final act. I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, but it's available now, so I mean, it's definitely go rent it. You'll enjoy it. Pretty much anybody. I don't know how you can hate this movie. I guess it's a very. I don't want to say safe, because I feel like that's a bad word, but it is a hard movie to dislike in terms of horror movies. Let's move on to Babysplitters.
Babysplitters, yes. Boy, do I fucking hate this movie. This is a supposed comedy about two couples, oddly enough, and the same dynamic, and a much more horrifying idea. The two couples here are basically two couples that one half of each couple doesn't want to have a baby yet. They both eventually want to have kids, but they're not yet for two of them. So one of them, Daddy Pewdie from Community, comes up with this idea while they're all four hanging out. Why don't we have like a baby, but we share it between the four of us? So like, 1 week the baby's with us, and then next week the baby's with you, and then we can mix the genetics in and come up with a way that it's like genetically both of our babies, so that you guys have the baby it's like a real family thing, except we're all we all get to be free for a week, but we all get the joy of having a baby. Which is, fine, whatever. I think what is interesting is that this is a movie that at the very least introduces an interesting dynamic about, honesty about having kids. Because a lot of people feel the way like, I would love to have kids, but I don't want to give up my freedom. And I certainly do understand that. But what this movie is really about, what the core of this fucking piece of shit is about, is about reaffirming that the male-female parental dynamic is the only dynamic that works, and no other type of family can work. And this is just about reaffirming values. And that's what so many movies like this are just so predictable about reinforming, reinforcing the idea of traditional family values. Because you can't, they like to introduce this idea, and they like to come up with little sitcomic gags about why this idea is funny. But in the end, what this is really about is about repeatedly copping out about the idea that anything other than a male-female parental unit could be right. And that just really pissed me off. From beginning to end, I was angry at this movie. This movie relies on so much garbage as humor, like the whole thing about how they're going to conceive the child. They can't afford in vitro fertilization, so they have to have the husband of the one group and the wife of the other group have to have sex, and so they're going to do it. But the wife of the one guy is going to be outside, or she's actually going to be watching them have sex to keep it from being cheating, I guess. And Danny Pewdie's character is going to be like in the other room, like nearby. So I guess but then it just becomes about him being cuckolded and feeling jealous and angry, and so he's got to have sex with the other wife, so he can feel better about himself, because he can't have a movie like this without reaffirming his macho status as a man. He's got to have sex with the other wife so he can feel better about himself, which is a bunch of fucking macho bullshit garbage. And you can tell I'm a little upset. That just happens throughout this fucking movie. So, of course, I'm going to spoil the fucking shit out of this because it's such a piece of shit. So he ends up knocking her up, the other wife, who they thought couldn't have kids anyway. She ends up getting knocked up by Danny Pewdie's character. Triplets. The original woman gets pregnant. She is going to have twins. So there's 5 babies now, right? But, of course, that's not going to end up being the case, because the woman who's having the triplets, those babies die. What? They don't even have the balls to go through with that plan, because they just kill those babies right out. So they're dead. They die in the womb. So then it becomes about, okay, well, the two couples got to get into a fight and argue, and they're going to fall out. And then it's like, well, what do we do? We got these 2 babies between us. Now what? Well, we'll just split them up. You'll take one baby, we'll take the other baby. But, of course, no. This movie doesn't have the balls to even follow through on that fucking bullshit. Because what is the fucking twist of this movie? Danny Pewdie accidentally knocked up his wife at the very beginning of the movie. So the whole sex with the other guy didn't matter at all. It was biologically his the whole time, and they get to be a traditional family just like nothing happened. And fuck this movie. There's a whole subplot where once they realize that oh shit, we're going to have twins, they decide that they're going to try and maybe, well, if we outsource it to a third couple, then we'll each have back to the dynamic that we want, of having time away from the babies. So they try to get a gay couple to come in to be part of their little bullshit group here. And why do they pick a gay couple? Because the gay couples are stylish and hip and they're good looking. We got all these really good looking gay couples, and it's just about stereotypes can be positive. And so the positive stereotype here is that gay people are always stylish and well kept and hip and whatnot, and really all this is about showing off a group of gay people who are acceptable to everyday mainstream audiences. Not about giving them any kind of human quality, any kind of realistic quality. No. It's just about this stereotype about the kind of gay people that we want and we like in our lives. And fuck you. Fuck this movie so much.
Sounds like a lot of wasted time.
Fuck yes.
When you introduce an idea, then totally bail on it. It's like, why even have the triplets storyline if you're going to go that? I mean, even watching the trailer, it seemed, I don't know, it just didn't seem like it. Like, I'd rather watch a movie about couples that wife swap and then accidentally have a kid and have how they figure that out. That's more interesting. It's also probably more realistic. But
you just created a far more interesting movie.
Or a swinger community or a swinger community with just like 15 kids running around. That'd be kind of uncomfortable. But maybe back to the wife swapping idea.
Cult.
Right.
We're writing a better movie right now. Fuck you, Babysplitters. We're going to write a better movie right now.
It's funny, though, when I turn rental on, my wife's like, this isn't a wife swapping movie. It's which I don't know why she thought that. But, man. Yeah, I obviously didn't watch Babysplitters. I found out about it about an hour ago, and I thought about it, but I didn't want to pay for it, and I watched the trailer, and I'm like, I saw enough, and I'm glad to hear you hated it, because just listening to you describe it, at one point you broke up a little bit, and you breaking up actually is going to make the show a little better, because you were so... It was very, very... You were in the midst of your anger. It was amazing. Man, Babysplitters. I mean,
that's the worst of 2020 for sure.
I mean, I guess I get the idea, but it's just a mess. It's a really wasted time.
I know. It just makes me so mad. Like I'm so sick of mainstream movies already. Even with not having any mainstream movies lately, I've been tired of like the mainstream reaffirmation of typical American values for so long, and this just punched all of the wrong buttons with me. It really did.
Right.
You can have adults have adult conversations and be real with each other about how they feel, or you can have bullshit like this where everybody's just kind of bullshitting around the actual issue, and just every problem can be solved just by having an actual fucking conversation.
Right. And what makes movies like this more infuriating is their intentions weren't bad, and because of that, it's just like you totally missed the point, and it makes, I don't know, because they're not trying to be offensive. They're almost trying too hard not to be offensive, that it comes off more offensive than had they just gone all out and been wildly offensive. I don't know if that makes any sense. But
there's one more aspect to this that I didn't even get to yet, and that is that there's a whole... So Danny Pudi's got a job at this wacky startup about farm-to-table foods or whatever, and he's working with a bunch of millennials, really young kids in their 20s. And what do you know about these kids that you could probably tell me what you think how these characters are portrayed?
They ate avocado toast, drank coffee. I don't know what.
They're on their phones constantly, and they're offended by everything.
That's
everything offends them. Everything hurts their feelings. They're triggered by everything, and they would make a joke about, of course, trigger warnings, and they make all these jokes about who identifies as what, and it's like, fuck you, take your Bill Maher cancel culture bullshit and go do that in another fucking play. I'm so fucking tired of that shit. Oh my god. It was really funny. I was listening to something last night about our classic. We're going to talk about it a little bit. They're talking about how in Anatomy of Murder they were concerned about the word panties. There was a big talk. They actually had a very, very long conversation about whether or not they would allow the movie Anatomy of Murder to have characters repeat the word panties. And We talk about how offended people are today. Are you fucking kidding me? We couldn't even say panties in 1958 without people fucking losing their shit. And you want to talk about how people are offended by everything today? Screw you.
Yeah, it's stupid. I mean, cancel culture is not real. Nobody really truly gets canceled. I mean, so some people don't like Louis C.K. anymore. He's still touring just fine. You know?
Exactly. It's not like he's in prison.
No. It's just now people are like, you know what? I mean, I tried watching a little thing with him over the weekend. I don't know why. I was on YouTube just watching Colin Joe stuff. For whatever reason, a Louis C.K. thing popped up. I clicked on it. It's not the same for me. But for other people, it still is. He's not canceled. You know, nobody is canceled. Your audience might not be as big as it once was. And that's your fault for doing something stupid. That's not the same thing as canceling any. I don't know. The whole thing is dumb. I mean, fucking Donald Trump's the president. Tell me what cancel. I mean, nobody is canceled. It's stupid. Yeah, some people don't like things, but okay, Kevin Hart didn't host the Oscars. He's doing just fine. You know,
yeah.
It's just, and on top of that, I mean, I've seen the Adam Sandler movies. I've seen even the Todd Phillip movies. All you know, old school. All these, we've seen so many of them that I'm ready to move on to a different type of movie now. It's just, you know, you had the slasher movies in the 80s. I don't need them anymore. You can bring one or two back here and there and do something unique like The Rental did. But I'm ready to move on to something more challenging here. And more than anything, that's the most offensive to a movie to me, like Babysplitters, is just that it's too traditional. You know, there's nothing unique about it. It's not. I mean, we've seen it too many times already, and now you're trying to do it in 2020. Just, I don't know.
And the whole bullshit about how, because you cast an Indian character and
Right.
an Asian woman and you know just people of ethnic backgrounds as your lead characters, and oh well, now that counts. I can do whatever I want now. I can just reaffirm typical values that have always been reaffirmed in every other movie, but I'm multicultural, so it's okay. And you know,
Right.
Screw that. Oh my god, just screw this movie so much. It's just so full of shit.
Yeah. All right, let's.
I'm more offended by something like this that pretends so hard at being modern and caring about modern things and being of the moment, as opposed to a movie like Doolittle, which is just misguided more than anything. It's annoying and misguided. This is just actively like somebody. It can't even. It's pandering so hard, and yet it can't even pander right. And that's just such. How do you fuck up pandering? You're just trying to give the audience everything you think they want, and they can't even do that right.
Right. And I mean, that's exactly what I've always said is I'll take a dumb David Spade movie because at least it's not trying. You know, it might have gotten to the bar it got to. This one, it's not setting the bar that high, but it's setting it higher than that, and it's still missing it. If you can't hit the bar you're setting, then you're not, I don't know, it's not even worth attempting. I don't know. It's disappointing. All right, Let's get rid of the disappointment.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event for the linear, legitimate, and universally recognized Undisputed Classic.
The Anatomy of a Murder.
Jimmy Stewart, Lee Remick, how did I forget his name?
George C. Scott.
Sorry?
George C. Scott.
And the guy from Roadhouse, Ben Gazzara. There it is. Took me a minute for some reason.
The guy from Roadhouse.
He is the guy from Roadhouse.
I know.
This story from 1958, directed by Otto Preminger, and Best Picture nominee that lost to Ben-Hur, which is just really unfortunate because Ben-Hur is a piece of shit. I'm in one of those moods. Anatomy of Murder basically sets up a classic courtroom thriller in which a man is not merely accused, he actually did kill somebody. Ben Gazzara's character walked into a bar and shot a man who his wife claimed had raped her. Lee Remick is his wife, and whether or not he was in his right mind, I guess, becomes the question. This is based off of a real story. They hired Jimmy Stewart to be their lawyer. He's the former district attorney, and now he's on his own, spends all his time fishing, not making any money, and just takes this case, and mostly because he kind of needs the money, but also because it is kind of challenging. He's kind of fascinated by how he could actually get this guy off for this. And the real key here, I think, actually for me, is the casting of Ben Gazzara. I think that's the secret weapon of this entire movie. Ben Gazzara is an actor who's inherently suspicious. He's a very adult character. You look at him and you see kind of menace, and he plays into that. And I think some of the other movies like this, take for instance something like A Few Good Men. You've got a couple of really young, kind of dopey looking characters. They're not the brightest bulbs, they're kind of muscled up teenagers, it would seem, almost, and it kind of their dumbness is kind of their representation. Gazzara is in his 30s. He looks like a guy who's been around for a while. He looks like a guy who's got a lot of intelligence. Like, this is a guy who would not just merely thoughtlessly kill somebody. Like, he planned this, he got a gun, he went and did it. He looks like he could be that guy. And I thought that is such a smart bit of casting, because it creates doubt in our mind about his whether or not he was insane when he did this, or whether or not he. But then, of course, you get the moral aspect of it. Here's a guy who's defending his wife. His wife was allegedly raped by this guy, and he went and killed him. And that's certainly a very understandable motivation for somebody to want to kill somebody. So you are on his side. And I love that Jimmy Stewart even says that. The court will be on your the jury will be on your side immediately because of why you did this. And he's right. That's an inherently sympathetic thing. The next thing then becomes how, whether or not you could create a justification for this. And temporary insanity is essentially the defense that they come up with, and it's a really clever thing. And I thought the dynamic that they create in that courtroom is really smart. And it's not necessarily, it's almost kind of morally ambivalent in a way. It's not, because you're looking at Jimmy Stewart, which is another particularly smart bit of casting, who is the inherently good guy. He always has been, always will be. Just this paragon of virtue, Jimmy Stewart, who's kind of in this middle ground of morality, where he knows his client is guilty, he knows his client did this, and he's not even really sure if his client was actually insane when he did this. And right. So he's in a unique spot of his moral ambiguity, and you don't normally see Jimmy Stewart in that light, and I love that. I really like a lot of this movie. It's overlong. Yeah. You can cut a lot out of this movie. There's this whole sequence about right before Ben Gazzara's character is supposed to appear in court. He's not actually there. That whole scene could be cut. You could just lift that whole 5, 6, 7 minute sequence out of this movie, and it would change nothing. All it does is tell you that Ben Gazzara's character was taken to Detroit to be looked at by an army psychiatrist. Really, you could do that in dialogue and be done with it. This movie has a kind of a slow pace to it, a very slow build, and some of that is built into wanting to create an atmosphere of trying to take the tension away a little bit from the court aspects of it, and kind of create this languorous pace that kind of fits more of what Jimmy Stewart is about. He's a very laid-back guy. And I liked some of that, but again, there's a lot of fat in there that you could have cut out.
Yeah, it starts off slow. You could have tightened up the first almost quarter of the movie really tight, and then it ends kind of. The ending is just kind of ends. It's not a big, but there's nothing wrong with that, because the courtroom stuff is so good. They introduced the idea that maybe it wasn't right. Maybe she was cheating on him, and you needed. I think the casting of George C. Scott being able to go toe-to-toe with Jimmy Stewart. Normally in these Jimmy Stewart movies, he just kind of steals everything. But now you got George C. Scott that's equally as powerful on his side of this, and it really becomes more about the fight of the law more so than the fight of morals. They're just trying to the game of playing the game between two lawyers, and it's just fascinating. It was really cool to watch them do what they do, and it's weird that this came out way before all the other movies that we've seen, where you're not really sitting here rooting for the guy. You're just kind of watching to see what happens and how they get through what they, how they prove his innocence or guilt. And you don't see that much. I mean, you mentioned A Few Good Men. That would be one as well, where it's just, are they guilty or are they not? But, A Time to Kill, I guess, is another one, which really John Grisham should have to pay money to this story. It's essentially the same movie, only then there are a book, only that was more race-based, and instead of a wife, it was a kid.
Right.
But, I don't know. Jimmy Stewart and George C. Scott going toe-to-toe was fun to watch when you got to the courtroom part of it, and it was just interesting. I don't know.
True.
I mean, really, if you know the premise, fast forward to the when they get to court, and you don't really need anything else after that. And then it doesn't really matter how it ends, because either way, it's I don't know. It was really just a fun, tight watch. If you put it on Flickchart, is it the best courtroom movie of all time? I think I'd still take My Cousin Vinny just out of pure entertainment. But it kind of ruins A Time to Kill even more for me, and and even A Few Good Men is too polished. This is more real, largely because it was based on a real story. But I don't know. I'm glad I watched it.
It's interesting too that this doesn't do what so many other courtroom movies do. Every courtroom movie tends to build toward that final monologue. That big actorly monologue at the end. Where Matthew McConaughey says, "Now imagine she's white." That kind of thing. Or they all build to that. This movie is like, nope, skip that. Fuck it.
Right.
You got what you needed. You don't need to hear this again. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I don't. That end scene is great. That's a great scene, the way they play that out. Oh, that's so smart. And I really loved that. That made me very happy. Not that I didn't want to see it. I was kind of preparing myself for what it was going to be like to watch George C. Scott deliver like a monologue about Ben Gazzara's guilt and then have Jimmy Stewart refute that. I was kind of building, I was excited for that. And then they didn't do it. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, we don't need that. You're right.
And I mean, that's what's so also fresh about watching a movie like this. It's like, this came out in, 59? It is over long, and they don't have the monologue, but that could never happen today.
Right?
It could never. They would make it shorter. They would probably make it shorter to hurt the movie. It'd be some stupid monologue because they couldn't do what they want to do, and that's it goes back to a movie like Babysplitters. Why can't people? I don't know. I'd love to see more just directors full on visions like we get from A24 movies. I don't know. This was just. I really enjoyed it, and I'll take the fat and what's wrong with it because of how it's more fresh than a lot of what we get to see today, which is what's neat. I mean, obviously, I'd rather watch it in under 2 hours, but in terms of the feeling you get watching a movie, this didn't feel contrived at all.
No, it's really clever. The twists and turns and Otto Preminger's direction is so incredibly smart. He's a great director, and he really makes very smart choices every time, and not non-conventional choices at that. That's what's really so great about it. Is like I said about that closing, that no closing arguments in a courtroom movie is such a weird and brilliant choice in the end. You just don't expect it. Actors love those kind of monologues, and they don't. And you've got two guys who could really probably lay into those monologues in an amazing way, and then he doesn't do it. I really love that. Actually, the more I think about it, the more tickled I am by the fact that he just didn't do it. Just because that's exactly what the audience is expecting.
I mean, it's like going to a concert with an amazing guitar player, and he could go into this great solo, but instead he just plays a tight, great song instead. Or it's better. I don't know. I love that, and like Jimmy Stewart should be like my favorite actor because every time I go back and watch what he does, he has yet to really miss. I mean, part of me probably thinks It's a Wonderful Life is his worst movie, and that's his favorite movie, or everybody's favorite movie that he did. I don't know. Without exception, he's really knocked it out of the park every time. And even with what was wrong with this movie, there was enough in it that was just fascinating, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think everybody kind of grows up thinking we know who Jimmy Stewart is, and then you go back and watch his movies, and you get to watch him layer in so much personality and so much more, not edginess, but like do things with he's like as if you were today aware of who Jimmy Stewart was, and
right.
That's so interesting. Like because I'm sure he really didn't know how people perceived him, like in the way we're so familiar with our perceptions are now. I can't imagine he knew how people felt about it.
And I don't know that they felt about him that way back then. As time went on, he kind of became like a John Ritter or America's Dad. I don't know. He was perceived as the It's a Wonderful Life guy, for most of us growing up. And even between Jimmy Stewart movies, when we get away from him for a while, I go back there. And I get prepared for homework. In some ways, this is kind of long, so it does a little bit feel like homework. But you get back there, and you're like, God damn it, he's good. And you never feel like you're watching. Sometimes you have to watch a movie and go back to that time period and go, well, this is probably what it was like then. So you got to put yourself in that mindset. You never have to do that with him. Even Rope, which was clearly a stage play, he does something there that, I don't know, that just kind of makes you you get lost in the movie instead of having to find the way to watch the movie. I'm not good at explaining it, but he's just easy to watch.
He's so incredible with other actors. The way it just seems like he's drawing things out of people. Just with his manner, with his presence, he gets people to say things that maybe they wouldn't say to other people, and that's such a fascinating quality for somebody to have. And he seems like so kind of judgmental at times, but also very accepting. And there's something about the way he addresses every character. Lee Remick in this movie plays this very complicated character. She's somebody who perceives herself as by necessity. She has to be sexy and she has to draw people to her. She thinks that's the only way to get people's attention and keep people in her life. And so she acts that way towards almost everyone. And so she tries that with Jimmy Stewart. She tries to appeal to him through her, her sexuality, and he just shuts it down. And he's just so aware of it. Like, he tells her straight up multiple times that he finds her very attractive, but he understands that her point is trying to be super attractive, and he knows that. He's aware of it. He says it straight out. And you're like, wow, this is the kind of thing that most people wouldn't be willing or able to say out loud. And he does it. He just has so much force behind it and so much truth behind it. He doesn't take the bait with her ever. And it's so cool.
In a lesser movie, that would have been offensive too, that her character, the way that they perceived her as, well, is she a slut? A lesser movie would not have done that the way that this does. At no point did I watch this and even get remotely even halfway offended. That was her character. And
and the courtroom scenes, I mean, George C. Scott really edges up to the idea of, well, what was she wearing that night? And he edges up to that whole thing that was the most insidious aspect of our most recent past, is the way we talk about and treat women related to sexual violence. How we essentially treat it like it was their fault. Like, women need to do this to not draw a man's attention. Like, she dresses really sexy. It's her fault that she got raped. Like, that kind of awful humanity that was so prevalent for so long. This movie edges up to that, and Jimmy Stewart shuts that shit down. In 1958, he's doing that. It's like, fuck yeah, man.
Meanwhile, in 2019, they're still using that defense against for Harvey Weinstein while he's on.
Right.
Oh man, but you needed George C. Scott. That too. I didn't realize how much I liked him. I went back to, obviously, Dr. Strangelove and how awesome he is in that. But you needed him to be almost as equal as Jimmy Stewart to really make this even that much better. And just all around, when you're in the courtroom, it is just intriguing.
Yeah,
I definitely recommend watching it, maybe with the fast forward button. Especially if you listen to this, you kind of know what's going on. Get to the courtroom, and you'll be good.
I want to talk. I don't want to give away anything, but I do want to talk a little bit. There's this really smart twist about it, about one of the other female characters that they just give away. Like halfway through the movie, or like start of the third act, they basically give away the thing that every other movie would have taken and made it a courtroom revelation. Like they would have made it that moment where everybody just gasped, which everybody does still, but instead of having the audience, instead of including us in that, we already know. They told us several scenes before that this is what happened, and then they put that in the courtroom and everybody gasped. And I thought that was so, again, it's just subverting. It's subverting things that aren't even tropes yet at the time, which is so great.
Yeah, because if we don't know, now you're going to lose me a little bit. I'm going to start to roll my eyes. Right. Because somebody's going to know that. And, maybe, you're already kind of pushing it that the prosecutor doesn't know it. But, they do a good job of explaining why they don't know it, and that's why it works. If you do this to them, if it's a surprise for everybody, it really just blows up in your face. But, yeah, it was a great whole, I don't want to call it a subplot, but twist, I guess is the right way to word it. The way they did it was just to perfection, and when you can avoid something like that being eye-rolling, it's really impressive. I mean, The Rental did stuff, there's a lot of movies but that would, every horror movie has had enough eye-rolling moments, and The Rental went and took all those eye-rolling moments and took them out and made a reason for them. And whenever a movie can do that, that's impressive. And that whole twist, again, hard to pull off, and they did it in 1959.
And I love that. I think there's almost an element too of him almost setting George C. Scott up to use. He's using his prejudice against this woman against him, because he tricks him into asking a question that he doesn't know the answer to, which is the biggest mistake that any lawyer can ever make. Never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. Right,
and it's like watching a sporting event. You have two titans going head to head. The first one to make a mistake loses, and that's kind of what happens here. And I don't know. It was just, and then we kind of already talked about this, but we have our perception of Jimmy Stewart, and then this movie has nothing to do with morals. It's all about the law, and playing the game of the law, and. Yeah. Jimmy Stewart, we're all associating with morals because of It's a Wonderful Life, and that gives it just another layer that it's got to fight through, and it still works. I don't know. The more I'm talking about, the more I like it. I still think fast forward to the beginning, and the ending, it just kind of ends. But that whole courtroom stuff, everybody would enjoy it. I think
so.
All right, let's go on to 1990, where I don't know if enjoyable is the right word or not, but we'll stick with the courtroom drama, Presumed Innocent. I've never seen it. Did you watch it?
I did. This is a very good movie as well. Awesome. Presumed Innocent stars Harrison Ford as an attorney in the DA's office. He is the second in command to Brian Dennehy as the lead prosecuting attorney in New York. He gets assigned this case of a fellow assistant district attorney who gets murdered, who he happened to have been sleeping with at the time. Most people aren't aware of it, so when he gets assigned the case, he's kind of like, I really shouldn't take this case, because I was sleeping with her, and he doesn't come out and say that, but they communicate that well in terms of his manner, and then with dialogue between he and his wife. His wife is played by Bonnie Bedelia, and she basically is the one who informs us in a way very subtly that he slept with her. Like they had a whole affair. He shouldn't be the attorney on this, and he tries to get out of it, but Brian Dennehy insists on it, so he's on the case. He comes to find out a lot of things about her, about the cases that she was working. She's working sex crimes, and there's an element of the crime is very violently sexual. She may have been sexually violated prior to her murder. It comes to a whole build-up to where finally it does come out about his relationship, and pretty much anybody who was having a relationship with her, which is a lot of guys, they don't shame her for that. It's an element of her life that she kind of did this with a lot of different guys. That essentially they come to accuse Harrison Ford of the murder, and they've got a lot of evidence against him that he did this. So he goes from being the attorney, the district attorney who's investigating her murder, to being the suspect and the guy who's charged with it. Raul Julia enters the story at that point as his lawyer, and Raul Julia is phenomenal in this movie. He's so great. He does not care whether he did it or not. He's a high-powered New York attorney. His whole thing is about figuring out a way to get this guy off, regardless of how it happens. And he's got a complete lack of a moral compass in that way. Like, he doesn't care if he's guilty or not. He just wants to fix it. He just wants to get this done. The way it plays out is completely unexpected throughout. They come up with a lot of very clever twists and turns, to the point where up until the final 5 minutes, you don't know whether or not Harrison Ford is guilty or not. And that is really exciting. Like, you're kind of like, there's elements of it throughout where he even talks first person as the murderer a lot during this movie. Like, well, I did this. I mean, obviously, if this happened, I did this. And you're kind of like, did you? And that's kind of a fun way for this movie to play out. Raul Julia at one point has this amazing line where they smash cut right to his face, and he goes, "Justice was done, right?" Oh, it's such a great moment. Like, I don't know, was it? Oh, it's really good. I really like this movie a lot.
I feel like, based on the way you're describing it, I'd like it, but I'd have a hard time liking it this weekend after watching Anatomy of a Murder. So that's what I'm kind of impressed with the way that you're able to separate the two, because this seems more blockbustery, lawyer, like, like Few Good Men or something like that. Maybe not overly blockbusterly like that, but it seems more polished, and it's got more Hollywood in it by the fact that now the lawyer's on trial, and now here's Raul Julia. I mean, am I wrong? It seems like a more polished blockbuster type movie or Hollywood movie.
It is, but it's also got it doesn't do a lot of, like, there's no closing arguments in this movie either.
That's cool.
They figure out a way to get around that, and that is really dark and disturbing and clever, and I really love that. And there are just so many people who are kind of morally ambiguous in an interesting way that's different, very different from the ambiguousness of, say, an Anatomy of a Murder. I really like this. This is really clever. And like I said, just the excitement of the way Harrison Ford plays this character, and they're able to make you feel like throughout the entire movie that there's a chance that he did this. And you don't know. You don't know.
But I'm guessing he didn't.
I'm not saying anything.
I know. I mean, I'm definitely intrigued, but I think I need to give it a couple weeks, because I don't know. I'm not as good at compartmentalizing. However, I did watch Problem Child this week just because my wife wanted to show the kids, and my kids walked out, so I didn't finish it. I mean, it is what it is. It's just like any of those other nostalgia movies. It didn't lessen from when I was a kid, but it hasn't. I mean, I never loved it anyway, so it only works because of John Ritter, the way he does his little all-American dad thing. But the premise is kind of like a Dennis the Menace thing. Like, he's just this awful kid who does awful things throughout, and John Ritter just kind of has to try and figure out how to deal with it. I mean, basically, the movie starts with someone taking a baby carriage and putting it on her front step and running away. And then they take that baby carriage, and then that baby pees all over the mom, and then that mom takes the baby carriage to the next house or wherever and walks away. And gradually, they're basically holding an 8-year-old in a baby carriage, taking it to or however old he is, and it's stupid. And then he ends up in a orphanage with a bunch of nuns, and he's a little hellraiser there. Meanwhile, John Ritter and his, controlling wife are trying to have a kid. She doesn't want a kid. He does, or she wants one, but she only wants it for the status. And she finds out she can't have kids, and he just wants to adopt. He works at a sporting goods store that his dad owns. All-American sporting goods store that his dad's selling to the Japs, as he says in the movie, which is very very offensive. But it's needed for that. I shouldn't even say that on the podcast, but I was just quoting the movie. What's the actor's name? He's a famous bad guy, too. Oh, my God. Warden Jack? I don't know. I can't think of his name. He plays John Ritter's dad. But then, basically, John Ritter convinces his wife to adopt so they can start going to more parties in the neighborhood and her status will improve. And obviously he comes in and just starts raising hell. He makes Big Ben's life miserable. That's John Ritter's dad. He makes the wife's life miserable, but John Ritter really loves him, so there's a little connection there where he's drawing pictures of the devil, and that's grandpa, and horrible witch, and that's his mom, but then he just draws a picture of dad and him. It's cheesy, and then you throw in the fact that Michael Richards is the bad guy. He's in jail. I can't think of his name. The bow tie killer. And at one point, there's a scene where, Junior is in the orphanage, and they're writing pen pal letters, and everybody's writing, to whoever their pen pal is, somebody, cool and prestige. And here he is writing his pen pal letter to the bow tie killer. And then you got Kerry Von Erich in jail with the Texas Tornado from WWE. He's in there with Michael Richards. That made it for me. He's getting letters, the pen pal letters, and he's reading it as JR instead of Junior, and that all comes back in the end. I mean, it's stupid, but it's nostalgic stupid. When I was a kid, I watched this movie, so I liked it okay then, and I liked it okay now, but my kids hated it, and you would have hated it too.
I would have hated it.
As well, you should have. It was only free, so that was the reason. I think it was on Netflix, maybe, and I started it about halfway through. But it's goofy. I don't know. It is what it is. It's the worst movie of the weekend besides Babysplitters, probably.
I'm betting Babysplitters is worse.
I'm betting it is too.
From my personal perspective.
I'm betting it is too. But it was. But it's not. It didn't lessen like Gremlins or Goonies or something. Not the Goonies lessen too much for me, but a lot of these other movies, when you have the nostalgia, they lessen a little bit when you go back to them. This one, I guess I didn't like them as much as those, but it just kind of stayed where it was. So I guess that's impressive. Next week, we don't know. We don't know much of anything.
No idea.
1990 is kind of a week. We got Young Guns 2, Ducktales the movie, Metropolitan. I keep wanting to say Metropolitan. I don't know why. The fucking Superman made me say Metropolis too much. And then Mo Better Blues, probably the best movie of the four, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. So we'll try to find a classic, and we'll see what pops up on Netflix or Amazon or wherever else, or what comes in Sean's email. So we'll let you know. So that'll be up in the air. But let's see. patreon.com/criticspod. Help support the podcast. Get yourself a credit on the show. And then our TeePublic page at IHateCritics.net, upper right-hand corner. Get yourself a shirt or mask or whatever. And if there's any movies you guys think of that you want us to watch in the coming weeks, let us know. We're getting to the point where we might need some help. But we'll see. Flick chart, you got time for that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Ocean's 12, I Am Sam.
Ocean's 12, I Am Sam is really awful. Deeply offensive film.
Black Panther, Tommy Boy.
Black Panther.
Agreed. Let It Fall, I don't know what that is. That looks like a
I don't either.
Pacific Rim, Pocahontas.
Pacific Rim?
Yeah. The Last King of Scotland, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country.
Last King of Scotland.
Agreed. Dark City, Dr. Dolittle, 1998.
Dark City.
You sure? Weird.
I love Dark City.
I know. Just kidding. Weird Science, American Gangster.
Weird Science, because American Gangster is such a disappointment.
Yeah. Last Tango in Paris, How to Train Your Dragon.
Last Tango in Paris.
I'm going with How to Train Your Dragon. That movie bugged me.
I hear you. I don't like either of them.
How to Train Your... I mean, I don't know. I'm almost to the point of offensive. I mean, Marlon Brando never takes his clothes off, and she's naked the whole time. It's just, not that I want to see him naked or anything, but it's just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop 2, Burn After Reading.
Burn After Reading.
Agreed. 21, Not Quite Human.
I don't know, Not Quite Human.
It's a Disney movie. It looks like Neil Patrick Harris. Let's go 21, Freaky Friday, 2003.
21, I guess. I don't really remember Freaky Friday at all.
I liked it okay, but 21 was a little better. The Lead of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Bridesmaids.
Bridesmaids.
Now, my battery is about to die, so at some point this show is just going to end, everybody at home. And I won't even be able to talk to you, Sean, so we'll just have to hang out.
Fair enough.
All right. The Breakup, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer.
The Breakup, I guess. They're both awful.
Yeah, there's elements of The Breakup I like the Cubs Sox thing. Edge of Tomorrow, Rocky 3.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Gonna flip it. Not that I love Rocky 3, but I don't care about Edge of Tomorrow. Rocky 3 won the flip. Point Break, 1991, Leaving Las Vegas.
Leaving Las Vegas. I like Point Break a lot, but Leaving Las Vegas is pretty great performance.
Yeah, Turner and Hooch, Mission Impossible 3.
Mission Impossible 3. I really like that one, actually.
Agreed. GOG, 1954. Have you seen that?
I don't think so.
All right, let's refresh. Jerry Maguire, Phenomenon.
Jerry Maguire.
A Time to Kill, Gross Point Blank.
Gross Point Blank.
Last week I just said A Time to Kill.
Now you've seen an actual courtroom drama.
Well, that just ripped it off too much, you know? And then on top of that, you throw in the slickness of Hollywood that just affects it too much.
A Time to Kill does not hold up very well.
Scanners, Grindhouse.
That's tough because I really hate half of Grindhouse. But the other half is so very, very, very good. It's bizarre. I would actually say that Death Proof is better than both of them, so I guess Grindhouse.
It's weird because Scanners is like right in between.
Yeah.
So when you even it out, I'm going to go Grindhouse too just because of Death Proof. But I mean, it's kind of when you even it out, even as much as I like Planet Terror, I still think Scanners is better. They're kind of equal as a whole.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Drive, Alien versus Predator.
Drive.
Agreed. 28 Days Later, The Fountain.
28 Days Later.
Agreed.
Just Hugh Jackman just won't stop crying in The Fountain. Just stop crying for like 2 seconds.
I know.
his cry face is just gets irritating.
The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Inside Out.
40-Year-Old Virgin, but Inside Out is amazing.
Agreed. The Beach, Julie and Julia.
I have not seen The Beach in so long. I don't remember much about it. I don't remember liking it, but I honestly remember enough about it to...
Want me to refresh it?
I mean, yeah, kind of, because I think we're going to watch it soon, I think.
All right, let's go Unstoppable, Be Kind, Rewind.
Unstoppable, that's the trade movie with Chris Pine and Denzel.
Correct.
What's the other movie?
Be Kind, Rewind. I think Jack Black. I think it came out like right when the DVD started coming out. So
I really like it.
So you picked that?
Unstoppable's a great action movie. Be Kind, Rewind's just kind of a fun, weird movie. Man, flip a coin for me.
Yeah, I'm not. I think I'd go Unstoppable, but yeah, it wins.
If you want to take it, then yeah, let's take that.
The Game, Always.
The Game.
Yeah. Dude,
as disappointing as it is, I mean, Always is just kind of dreary.
Yeah, I liked Always at the time, but then as I got older, I don't know why I liked it as a kid. There's just one scene where he's making him paint his face in oil or something like that, and I thought that was funny. I don't know why I remember that, because I didn't watch it last year when it turned 30. But as much as I don't like The Game, I like Fincher, so...
Yeah.
Dude, Where's My Car? Van Helsing.
Dude, Where's My Car?
Agreed. I feel like that's one more than it should.
Because he ends up going against something like Van Helsing.
I know. What a Girl Wants, Spawn. Sometimes I just need to not even... If my internet was faster, I'd just refresh these before I even said them out loud.
Spawn, I guess.
Fantastic Mr. Fox, American Gangster. Two movies that should be better.
Oh, so much. Yeah, they're so disappointing, both of them. But I'd rather watch American Gangster over that twee bullshit.
Yeah. Charlie Wilson's War, Black Christmas. The original.
Again, Charlie Wilson's War is kind of a sneaky, brilliant movie. I'm going to go with that one.
Just to keep Cousin Jeff happy, I'm going to go Black Christmas. But I do like them both a lot. I like Charlie Wilson's War wins. Sorry, Jeff. But, I mean, they're both really good movies for what they are.
Yeah.
Dark City, The Third Man, 1949. I don't know what that is.
Oh, The Third Man is Orson Welles, directed by Carol Reed. It's absolutely brilliant. It's one of the greatest movies ever made.
So that's a classic next week.
I don't see why not. I mean, I would watch that movie in a heartbeat. I own the Criterion collection of that. I'm very, very pleased to watch that movie.
Let's see if it's available, and I'll happily watch that. We have nothing else to do. So you're taking that over Dark City. That's, I'm assuming.
That's how much I love The Third Man, yeah.
I'm just going to let you do that.
All right.
And now I'm looking to see if it's available on Amazon. Movie. Streaming. Come on, why is Terminator Anthology coming up when I type The Third Man? I can rent it, so at least I know it's available, so that's good. I can buy it pretty cheap, too. Now I'm excited.
It's a good movie. Like, it's really, really very good. It's British noir, written by Graham Greene, with Joseph Cotton and yeah, it's genius. It's absolute genius.
Well, yeah,
Orson Welles,
best movies of all time. Yeah. That's a hell of a. You've seen a lot of movies that say that. Isn't Fincher's new movie about Orson Welles, or is it about Citizen Kane or something like that?
Yeah, it's about the making of Citizen Kane, I believe, or it's something along those lines.
Can't wait to see that.
Oh, I'm so excited. That's a Netflix movie too, which is really, like, we get to watch it right away, which is great. no having to think about it.
Hopefully he's done making it, and it's just going to be out this year sometime instead of in the middle of filming.
And I just bought a book about the screenwriter Mankiewicz, so I'm like triple excited.
Nice. All right, back to reality. Shark Tale: Final Destination.